Colin Powell once said, "There are no secrets to success. It's the result of preparation, hard work, and learning from failure." And we couldn't agree more. This is Unleash the Champ Leadership Podcast. Unleash the Champ Leadership Podcast. We'll talk to people from all walks of life and pick their brains about their journey, the process, and the ups and downs to becoming successful. You want inspiration and motivation? It all starts here. This is the Unleash the Champ Leadership Podcast. And now your host, Kyle Sullivan.
What's going on, champions? Welcome to another episode of Unleash the Champ Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Kyle Sullivan, and today we have the #1 Firewalk instructor in America. I mean, we could stop right there, but we won't. Having worked for Tony Robbins for 19 plus years, started Firewalk Productions in 2014, Dave has firewalked hundreds of thousands of people. He and Tony Robbins set a world record in London in 2005, walking over 12,300 people. His success has a scary and violent past, though. On June 8th, 1988, he put a gun to his head to stop the excruciating pain from both drugs and alcohol addiction. 2023 marks 35 years of sobriety. Congratulations on that. Dave's clients include Google, NASA, Notre Dame, Virginia Tech, Heineken, Y.M.C.A, Entrepreneur Organization, Chick-fil-A. We could go on and on, but Dave, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Hey, Kyle, thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Man,
I'm honored.
I am excited, but first and foremost, I want to say congratulations on 35 years of sobriety. That is also part of my story and my journey. And let's see, this year will be 17 years.
Oh, wow. Awesome, bro.
So we have that in common, man. And that's a big deal. So wanted to say shout out to you for that. But man, we have the bio. Obviously, people are going to know Tony Robbins' name. They're going to know your client list. But who are you behind the bio?
Oh, wow. What a great question. I think it comes down to, for me, the two most important times of my life. Number one being the moment I was born, and number two, the moment I figured out why. And so that why came through a very painful path, whereas I was born to a single mom, Hollywood, California. She couldn't really afford me. I was living with her and my grandmother. She put me up for adoption when I was 5 years old, and her sister, which would have been my aunt and uncle, adopted me at the age of 5. And when they adopted me, they both swore off alcohol. Now, again, this was my aunt and uncle, but ended up being my parents, right? And then when I was 11, they set me down and they said, "David, we're not your parents." And they did that on the first day of summer of 1964. And this was right after coming out of November of 1963, when President John F. Kennedy was assassinated. Now, my father at the time that adopted me was a military officer. He was highly decorated in World War II in Korea. He worked in the Pentagon in Vietnam and such. And so he was in a very stressful mode almost all the time. And right after they told me that they weren't my parents, they both started drinking again. And that's where everything shifted, Kyle. It was just, I had this perfect childhood, and then all of a sudden it all went away. And so I was watching them drink every single day, and they would go to the cabinet and they'd pour it and drink it. And I was like, what is this? What's going on? I mean, I don't understand how these two beautiful people could turn into such very not nice people. Let's put it that way. And so I tried it at the age of 11, man. There I am. I poured my first glass of brandy in a coffee cup. I drank it, and I didn't have a chance, Kyle. I was done right there on the spot, man. It was like rocket fuel. My whole body just took off, and it just escalated from there. I went from alcohol, I went to drugs, went to hard drugs. I started hanging out with bad people, and we are who we hang out with. If I've learned anything from Tony Robbins, it's all about peer group, right? And he tells you, man, pick wisely, because you will become who you spend time with. Well, when you're hanging around with drug addicts and drug dealers and prostitutes and pimps and everything else, that becomes your family. That becomes your way of life. And I came all the way to June 8th of 1988. And I woke up that morning. I said, that's it, man. I'm done. We're not going to do this anymore. I was in such excruciating emotional and physical pain. Unlike you can't even imagine, when you're coming off heroin and cocaine and alcohol all at the same time, it's no walk in the park. And so all I knew is that day, something was different. It was going to stop. I loaded a pistol. I put it in my mouth. And as I'm sitting there getting ready to pull that trigger, it dawns on me that I'm married to a woman who's got 3 kids. They're my stepkids. And I'm like, you know what? If you pull that trigger, that's going to be on them. They're going to see it. They're going to live it. They're going to have PTSD. Now, I didn't even know what that was, but that's what they would have had. And so I was like, you can't do that. That's just not fair. You've got to come up with a better solution. And I played with it a couple of times. I literally put that pistol in my mouth a couple of times. And then I ended up calling this amazing organization. I hope most of your viewers know who they are. If you need help, call them. It's called Alcoholics Anonymous. And I went to AA that day. I went to 4 meetings, 12:30, 4:30, 6:30, and an 8:30 meeting. It was an all men's group. And that was it. I mean, I was stuck, man. I was there. I was all in. And I haven't had a drink or a drug since. So what happened from there is that AA kind of like bridged me into the personal development industry. I had a lot of insomnia and I was up late at night all the time. And so there I was up late one night. And I'm watching an infomercial. It's Gunthy Raker. And there he is, the man himself. Tony Robbins is up on stage selling his program, Personal Power. And it was a 30-day program. And to date this thing, it came on these little white things called cassette tapes. All right. And so there I was, man. They sent it to me. I plugged them in. I started playing them. I did what the man told me to do, and it worked. And the next thing I know, I loaned my book, Personal Power, or Unlimited Power, I should say, and then the program to a buddy of mine in AA. And 7 years later, Tony came to town, and my buddy got wind of it. He called me on the phone and said, hey, come on, man, let's go. You got me into this. Let's go do this. And so I said, sure. Yeah, my schedule works. Let's do it. So he called me back about an hour later and he made the reservations. We did it through will call. And on that call, he said, so here's what they told us to do. Hydrate, bring water, bring snacks. You're going to spend a lot of time in the room. Bring a good attitude and be ready to play full out. I said, Dan, how much was the ticket? He said, $700. And this is in 1995, right? I'm like, don't worry, I'll play full out, brother. Don't you worry about it. And just as he's getting ready to get off the phone, right? He goes, oh, and by the way, guess what? We're going to be doing a firewalk. And I mean, I swear to God, man, when he said that, it was like everything slowed down to like slow motion. It was like firewalk. And I remember thinking, oh, hell no. No. We're not going to do that, right? I mean, I want to see Tony but I'm sure, you don't have to do the firewalk, right? That's just for the crazy people. I'll still go, but I'm just not going to do it. Well, long story short, man, we get there that day. Tony takes the stage at 2:00 in the afternoon. Kyle, the next thing I know, it's after midnight. And here's how Tony sets this up. He puts you in a room for 10 hours and gets you ready for this firewalk, right? So when he's ready at the very end, he says, take off your shoes. I'm thinking, hold on a second here, man. I'm not doing this. Why do I want to take my shoes off, right? So now I'm kind of wrestling with that. And then I'm thinking, yeah, but if I don't take my shoes off, everybody around me is going to see I don't have my shoes, and they're going to know I'm wussing out. We can't have that. Well, so I take my shoes off, and then as he's got you walking out there, right, into this huge parking lot. It's a summer-lit night. It's beautiful. The moon's out. And he's got everybody chanting. There's 3,000 people, over 3,000 people there, right? And everybody's chanting, yes, yes, yes. And you're going out there and he's got African drummers, right? When you get out there, it's like, dun, 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 dun. It's so, you are just so engulfed in this. It's unbelievable. And then when you get out there, you can see the visual, right? Because over in the corner, there's a giant bonfire. And it's been burning there all day for hours and hours, and it's huge. And so what they do is they burn that fire all day, and then at night it renders, and then they pull wheelbarrows up to it, and they load coals into the wheelbarrows, and then they take a wheelbarrow and come out into the middle of this parking lot, and they lay 2 strips of sod on both sides of this where this wheelbarrow is. And the sod's about 3 feet wide. It's about 15 to 18 feet long. And they just take a shovel and they just shovel those coals out onto those lanes of grass, right? Well, my strategy is I'm going to hide in the back because I'm not doing it. I am scared to death. I am not doing it, right? And what you think is a good strategy, not so much. Why? Because Tony's people know where all the cowards are. And Tony's trained them, go in the back and go get the ones hiding out, right? So I'm hiding out back there, and sure enough, here he comes. And to this day, I don't know who this guy is. He just came up and he locked eyes with me. And I'm guessing that Robbins must have taught them once they make eye contact once you make eye contact with somebody, don't take your eyes off them. And this guy's staring at me. He's getting closer and closer. And I'm thinking, dude, don't do this. We're going to fight. I'm telling you right now. And all of a sudden he gets, I don't know, he's probably 25 feet away from me. And he looks deep into my eyes and he goes, "Are you okay?" And of course, when we're not okay, what do we say? "I'm fine. Yeah, I'm doing great." Right? Well, I'm not fine. And he says, "Oh, great." He goes, "So are you going to walk tonight?" And I said, "Absolutely not." And he goes, "Dude, that's okay." He said, "It's all right, man. We don't want you to do anything you don't want to do." And I thought, wow, okay. I like this guy. He's going to get me out of here. And then he asked me a question that changed my life forever, Kyle. One stranger, one guy, to this day, I don't know. And he said, "Well, wouldn't you at least like to walk?" Because when he asked me if I'm going to walk, and I said, "Absolutely not." Again, he got the message. He said, "Well, if you're going to watch, you're not going to be able to see anything from back here." Because he's true. That's the truth. I mean, in his defense, I was 100 yards from where they were actually walking. All I could see is 3,000 people in front of me. That's all I could see. But I could hear it, right? I'm hearing them. Now they're chanting and screaming and celebrating and they're doing all this, but I can't see it. So I took his advice. He said, "Well, you're going to have to get in line because to be able to see it, to get up there." And again, he was telling the truth. Well, I get in line and I'm kind of walking along and I'm waiting and I'm trying to get to a certain point. And all of a sudden this guy comes up to me and he whispers in my ear and he says, "He knows when you're ready. When he says go, you go." And I'm thinking, dude, you didn't get the message. The memo here is I'm not walking. I may watch, but I'm not walking. And all of a sudden I get to a certain point and I still can't see in front of me, but I can see at an angle and I can see them and they're walking. And my brain is going, what in the hell is going on? I don't have any references for this. I mean, it's insane. It's just something you can't even explain the energy and everything that's going on. Your brain is just freaking, right? And I'm staring at him and now I'm just kind of watching at an angle and I'm walking along and boom. Next thing I know, there I am. And now it's fight or flight. And I am standing there and I feel like my heart's going to jump out of my chest. And I'm looking down, Kyle, and I can see the coals on the lane, on the grass. There's a wheelbarrow there and you can feel the heat coming off and everybody's chanting, yes, yes, and the drums are dun, 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 dun. And all of a sudden I'm staring at the coals. Well, there's a trainer standing there. And all of a sudden he goes, "Eyes up." He screams at me, right? And I pull my eyes up. Well, when I'm in the room with Tony for 10 hours, right? He teaches you don't stare at what you fear. You have to look to the celebration end of what you're about to do, right? You face your fear, right? And so my eyes are up and all of a sudden he says, "Squeeze your fist and say yes." And I went, "Yes." And he went, "Stronger." And I went, "Yes." And he got in my face again and screamed. He said, "Stronger." Like he was pissed at me. And now I'm pissed, right? And I screamed at the top of my voice and I went, "Yeah." And he goes, "Go, go, go." And I took off. Right? And so what he does is that he positions 2 people at the end of the fire lane and they kind of lock arms, right? And they catch you. And he catches me and they said, "Stop, wipe your feet and celebrate." And I'm wiping my feet and I celebrate. And then I'm out of the way and all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, I've burnt my feet. I can feel it, right? And I look at my foot and it's dirty, but there's no burns. Oh, it's my other foot. It's dirty, but there's no burn. And so it was kind of like I had this moment and I look back and the coals are red, right? And you're like, brain's going, okay, I just walked on coals that are 1,000 degrees and I have no freaking idea how I did it. None. And here was interesting though. It's like the first thing I learned about firewalking, when I took that first step, and when you take that first step, oh, you'll take the second, third, fourth, and fifth. I guarantee you, man, you don't stop. And so that was it, man. Kyle was hooked. It was one of the most transformational moments of my life, right there on the spot. Beautiful after midnight, out there with all these people. But here's where it got interesting for me the next day. So we come into day 2 of the event, and I'd never seen or witnessed anything like it in my entire life. People were talking and they were communicating, they were hugging, they were laughing, they were crying, they were talking about the experience the night before, and people were getting along humanistically, unlike anything I'd ever seen or witnessed in my entire life. And to this day, I have never seen anything like it. When you take a group of people that have done something like that, it's that extraordinary, and you put them together, like the next day or whatever, I mean, the camaraderie is completely off the chain. And so I got involved with Tony's people and with his company. Later on that year, I actually volunteered to go to that same event and volunteer to help on the other side. And the next thing I know, I had because I have a military background and a security background, I got invited to help take care of some of Tony's celebrities. And then from there, I got on the fire team. And what happened from there was the next thing I know, I'm working on the fire team. So I'm learning, how to set everything up, and I'm learning all the logistics and doing all that. And then in 2000, I became a subcontractor, by the way, in 97. And then 2003, Robbins takes me aside at an event one day and says, "Hey, Aldi, I'd like you to take over all of my firewalks globally." And I said, "Tony, I'm honored. However, I can't." And he's like, "You can't or you won't?" Telling Tony Robbins, no, it doesn't go over very. And I said, "Well, I can't." And he said, "Really? Why?" And I said, "Because I homeschool my kids." And he goes, "Oh, hell, I missed that." And he immediately said, "So if I paid to have the kids on the road and your wife go with us, would that help?" And I said, "Sure, absolutely it would." And so the next thing I know, I'm on the road with Robbins full time. My family and I are traveling around the world, and I was the captain, right? So my job was to come in, set everything up, do all the training. Tony would bring out 8,000 people. We'd firewalk them. We'd clean it up. We'd go to the next city. And then in 2014, I'm driving down the road and my phone rings and it's Google. And they want to know if I'm the Dave Alvin that did the firewalks for Tony Robbins. Yes. What can I do for you? They said, "Well, we'd like to talk to you about hiring you as long as, you're not under any non-compete or contractual obligation with Tony." I'm like, "Nope. Homeboy's a free agent. I can do what I want." And the next thing I know, I'm in Mountain View doing a gig for Google. Did 2 gigs for Google. And there I met 2 executives with Google, and they basically set me down after the second event that we did. They set me down. We had lunch afterwards, and we were just talking, and they said, "Hey, listen, we're not trying to tell you what to do here, but you may want to think about doing this full time because there's a marketplace out there." And I'm thinking, okay, if Google's telling you there's a marketplace out there, you might want to pay attention. And so Firewalk Productions was born in 2014. And from Google, I went to NASA, as you read off, Notre Dame, Virginia Tech, Remax, Chick-fil-A, Heineken, the EO organization. And, here I am now on the Kyle Sullivan podcast. So it's been just an unbelievable dream.
Dave, there's so much there. And it's an incredible story. And to be, okay, I'm absolutely not doing this to be the number 1 firewalk Firewalk Instructor in America, over 500,000 people, is just insane. What have you seen? What lessons can somebody listening take away from all that you've seen doing what you've done?
I think I've been able to hone in on several. Why don't people get what they want in life? And I think the answer for that is pretty clear. There's a story we tell ourselves, right? So anything and everything that's ever happened to us in our lives, we create a story. So we either create a story that empowers us or we create a story that disempowers us. We embellish it, right? And so it doesn't matter what happens to us. Again, we have our finger on the on and off button, and we have our fingers on the volume control of that story. So I've really learned that if you want to change your life, change your story. Be careful what you tell yourself, because, Henry Ford said it, man. If you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And that's so true. Here I am. I'm a kid that I never met my real father, right? I didn't say part of the story, but 2 months before I was born, my biological father was a pilot in Korea, and he had some kind of head injury, and they put a plate in his head. And to save his life, they had to put that plate in his head. Well, it ended up taking his life too. 2 months before I was born, Kyle, my dad turned to my mom and said, "I'm going to the grocery store." She never heard from him. And so he complained a lot about pain, right? And he couldn't take it anymore. So we think because he was in so much excruciating pain, he took his life. And so, a story behind that will be, well, I'll never meet my dad. I'll never see my dad. I'll never have him. I'll never, so I could have created this big story, but I decided to keep an open mind to that. And though I never did actually physically meet my biological father, a couple of years ago, and I'm going to try to get through this. I'm sitting at dinner with my son, and we're just having dinner. And all of a sudden I'm looking across the table at him, and all of a sudden I go, "That's my dad's grandson." And so I saw my dad. I could see it in his eyes. I could see it in his appearance. I could just see it. And so I remember thinking, wow, because you had an open mind and you stayed open about this, now you've had this wonderful epiphany, if you will, about your dad and who he is and what's going on with him. And I think that's really critical, right? Details matter, man. And being all in with life opens you up to, incredible things, right? I have a guy that I love dearly, and we work together. His name is Eric Y.M.C.A. And I've got a picture of Eric that I show all my audiences, and it's a picture of him standing at Mount Everest. And Eric's a cool dude, man. He's a great guy. You put him on a mountain bike, he'll tear it up. Put him in a kayak down some of the most difficult rivers on earth, he tackles them. He's climbed the 7 highest mountains on 7 continents. And here's the interesting thing. He's blind. So I start off most of my talks when I get hired now, and I put a picture on the screen behind me, and I have a picture of Eric. And then I tell him that he's blind, and he's climbed the 7 highest mountains on earth. So guess what? I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear your excuses. I don't want to hear any of that. Because the bottom line is this, back to what you asked me. And that was, the moment I was born and the moment I figured out why. I figured out why that day I didn't put that bullet in my head. I got sober. I started helping other alcoholics achieve sobriety. Next thing I know, I'm in the personal development industry. I'm helping people break through their fears, because the fears we don't overcome become our limits. And fear's a liar, right? Fear will take everything from you if you don't step up and step through what's going on. You got to do the things that you fear. Comfort zones suck. Life is way on the other side of that comfort zone. So for me now, I believe that I have this overwhelming responsibility to serve my fellow human beings at a high level. Because look at all that I've been given back, right? You go get sober. Next thing you know, you're in the personal development industry. The next thing you know, you're doing a firewalk. The next thing you know, you're working for a guy like Tony Robbins. The next thing you know, your family's on the road with them. The next thing you know, you firewalk hundreds of thousands of people who have affected millions of people because, when they do the firewalk and leave, who knows what they're going to go home and do and how they're going to operate, how they're going to treat their family and things they're going to deal with, if you will. So, it's just the responsibility, man, is there. And something in AA, and I know you can relate to this because you've got long-term sobriety too, is when I first read the preamble, and the preamble of AA said, when anyone, anywhere reaches out for help, I want the hand of AA to be there. And for that, I'm responsible. Same thing here. Same thing with Firewalk Productions. I do a lot of philanthropy work and benevolent work. And, I go out and work with kids and, we break boards with our bare hands. We do the arrow break. We do the glass walk, the firewalks. I do all that. And I do it because it feels good. I mean, but for me, benevolent work and philanthropic work makes you feel amazing, right? It's almost self-centeredness, if you will, man, because it feels so good. It's so awesome. So yeah, man, that's, I've been given a great gift. And again, for that, when I told Tony I was going to retire and we sit down and we talk for hours. One of the last things he said to me was, Albie, with great wisdom comes great responsibility. So
that's it, man. So what was it like, working for Tony for 19 plus years, and even how your journey of, all right, I bought these cassettes. I went to this thing. I said, hell no, I'm not walking this deal. I serve, I volunteer, and then boom, you're traveling with him. How was that? You have a perspective very few on planet Earth have.
Well, Tony treated me and my family like gold. He loved my kids. My kids firewalked. Their first firewalk was in New York in early 2000s. My daughter was 6. My son was 9 years old when they first walked. And he knew it was going to happen, right? He knew. So they were standing off to the side and we were in New York. And so everybody else walked, all the participants. And then it was time for my kids and he waved them over and they came over and I was there and Tony was there and my daughter steps up. Here she is, little Virginia. And Tony took her by one hand. I took her by the other hand and we walked her across the fire together. And then my son steps up. He's 9 years old. And Tony looked at him and he said, I love you and I love your daddy. Go. And my son took off, right? So, Tony and I have, when you can't walk hundreds of thousands of people like we did and not have a special bond between us. We saw amazing things, breakthroughs after breakthroughs. And, all the celebrities that my team and I have firewalked, Usher and Oprah and all these kinds of people. But to me, it was more, it's the kids. You take a kid and you firewalk them and you maybe do a board break with them at the same event kind of a thing. That's so empowering for kids. And from my perspective, this is kind of where I'm headed now. I like doing the benevolent and the philanthropic work so we can go out and create really powerful experiences for kids and adults as well. I just came back from an event here this last weekend. We put on a glass walk and an arrow break for a large law firm in Atlanta. And I love that. It's great. It's what pays the bills. But I don't really even need to do that anymore. I could retire if I wanted to. I don't want to. I have no plans on doing that other than maybe slowing down a little bit. I've got a granddaughter on the way. I've already got a grandson. He's 5 and he's got a little sister coming. And really, when you get to be my age, that's a sweet spot in life because now I have good health. I have time. I have money. I have all of that to be able to spend time with them and, be a wonderful example and a legacy for my family.
Yeah, man, you're being able to live a legacy, not just leave one.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. And
so what? So you mentioned the glass walk. How different is that than the firewalk? Is it more dangerous, less dangerous, really dangerous?
they're both scary.
Yeah.
Dangerous. I don't think they're dangerous. I mean, I set a world record in Paris in 2018. We walked over 1,500 people. You walk 1,500 people, nobody got cut. So, it's like other things that, I'm going to teach you how to do it. And when I'm instructing you, my encouragement to you is pay close attention. And so they do. So with that said, it's actually very, very safe. And, the arrow break, that's where you put the arrow in your neck right here, right? And then they put it up against the wall and you step through and break that. That was pretty scary because it's really the only experience that we facilitate where, there's the illusion that you could die, right? Because if that arrow was to push through the soft spot of your neck, you're going to have a bad day. We do the rebar bend too, where that's where you put the steel, you and I, Kyle, would match up and we put the rebar in our neck and then we walk at each other at the same time and bend the rebar. And so, it just comes back to the whole thing where it says that, what doesn't challenge you doesn't change you. It's not going to happen. That's just not the way it works. You have to step outside of your comfort zone. You have to go do the things that you fear. And you have to do the things. I like to say life gets pretty good when you do the things that you don't want to do. Right? When we do the things that, we don't want to do, then, life is not that good. So if you want a good life, do the stuff that you don't want to do. Have your regiments every morning. Get up. Like people ask me that all the time. Dave, what's the first thing you do when you get up? Typically, the first thing I do when I get up is I make my bed. Then I drink 6 ounces of water. Now, I live up here in the Appalachian Mountains in the northwestern part of the state. I'm in the App Mountains. So the water coming into my cabin is mountain water. It's mountain spring water. It's delicious, man. It's alive. So I drink my water. Before I look at my cell phone, I do my meditation and I do sound therapy. Exercise, obviously, eat well, take care of yourself. Am I perfect? No, hell no. Am I going to go out and have ice cream once in a while? Yeah. That's why I've got a pancreas. I'm not anal about it, but I am pretty regimented and I am pretty disciplined in that. Because again, am I doing it for me? Yes. But I'm also doing it because I've got a grandson and I've got a granddaughter and I'm at the final stages of my life. I don't know how much time I have left, right? I'm going to be 69 years old this year, right? So, and with a granddaughter coming, I want to spend a lot of time with her. I'd like to be old enough to go to her her high school graduation, see her get married. And to be able to do that, I'm going to have to take really good care of myself. So, it's, if you help enough, here's something that I talk a lot about. And that is, I hope this has some value to your listeners. And that is, if you help enough people get what they want in life, you will always get what you want in life. It's a universal code.
That's it.
For
Dave.
sure.
Man, this has been as rich and as insightful and inspiring as I anticipated it to be, man. I really appreciate your vulnerability. You said when we were talking before hitting record, man, I'm an open book, and you really are. And so I value that and honor your vulnerability in our conversation today, man. Where can people find you? They want to bring you out. They want to know more. Where can people go?
Well, they better hurry up because I put out an announcement this last December that 2023 will be my last year. But if you want to come check it out, our website and look at some cool stuff, we're at www.firewalkadventures.com. You can find me, Dave Albin, on Facebook, and we have a Facebook Firewalk Adventures page as well.
Awesome. Well, Dave, thanks so much for being on the show. But before we let you go, I got one more final question for you.
Yes, sir.
And that's at Unleash the Champ Leadership Podcast. Myself and our listeners want to know, what does it mean to be a champion to you?
Be the vulnerability warrior, man. Don't be afraid to tell people where you screwed up in life, the mistakes you've made. Be open about it. It's okay, because we all do. Like you said earlier, you said it up front, Kyle. It's like, you read a bio and it's all polished and it's all handwritten. And here's what I've learned in life. People don't give two, what about that. People don't care about how much money I've made or how successful I am. They don't care. You know what they care about, in my humble opinion? And that is they want to hear about your struggles and how you overcame them. So from my perspective, tear the scab off, be okay, and go out there and be you and tell these people who you are and how you overcame it.
I love it, man. And that is it. That's powerful. Be vulnerable. And I love how you paired it with the vulnerable warrior. Dave, thank you so much for being on the show today.
My pleasure. Thanks, Kyle. We'll see you next time.
See ya.
You've been listening to the Unleash the Champ Leadership Podcast. Our passion is to talk to successful people and hear all about their journey and what it took to get there. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. We'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hit up the website at unleashthechamp.com. Find us on Instagram at Kyle J. Sullivan and hit up that Facebook page at Unleash the Champ. Remember, if you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But by all means, keep moving.